All right, guys, we are officially live. Sorry I missed last week's live stream. I've been dealing with a nasty sinus infection. Barely have much of a voice. I got a cough drop in, so hopefully my voice stays going good for at least this live stream, and we'll just tough it out from there. But we're gonna be focusing on details. I don't know. You probably can't tell what truck this is just by looking at it, but this is the. Let me grab the body. This is the Jurassic Park Jeep, and we're going to be focusing on the frame and axles and shocks and all that stuff today. And hopefully, I mean, if we're moving right along, we're going to do interior work and focus on that. I know I did this build kind of backwards. Normally I do frame and axles first, then I do interior, and then I do body. And this time I did body first, and I'm already kind of regretting that, but I was just in too much of a I was in too much of a rush to make this body look awesome that I kind of skipped a few steps. So we'll have to backtrack a little bit on this, but that's that's looking pretty good right now. We're gonna hopefully get that interior to look a little more, slightly more movie accurate. I mean, I'm not trying to be 100% screen accurate. A little bit of information on these FMS Mashigans. If you don't know, they do have shocks. The shocks do have oil in them, but they don't go together like a regular shock would, per se. They kind of have, well, it's a plastic bodied shock, and when you take the cap off, there's a little rubber seal in there, and when you take the rubber seal out, then you have your plunger and a couple drops of oil. I mean, it ain't nothing much in there, but I don't know if you could really put oil in there and have it stay sealed. Personally, I think it'd probably leak all over the place if you put a bunch of oil in there. Which, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing for this particular build that I'm doing, but kind of gotta stick that little plunger in there, create some suction. These are tiny, tiny shocks. Which, what I'm doing right now, like I said, if I really wanted to be screen accurate, I wouldn't even be fooling with these shocks, and I'd get the leaf spring kit and we'd go leaf springs. I have a leaf spring rig, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, leaf springs can be a lot of fun. They're very scale and whatnot, but after owning the Suzuki Jimny with the leaf spring kit on it, which I think it comes from the factory with leaf springs, but after, because this is the same chassis, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but this chassis and the 1/6 scale Suzuki Jimny chassis, they're the same chassis, same transmission, same, all this is the same right here, other than the four link system, because the Suzuki has leaf springs. But I mean, they have the same axles and everything. And after owning both of those vehicles, I don't know if I want to do leaps on this. I mean, yes, it would look better. It would be more screen accurate to have leaf springs, but it actually drives really nice with the four link. I mean, obviously, a four link is an upgrade to a leaf spring system anyway, but I don't know. I really, as much as I know this thing would look so cool with leaf springs, I don't want to lose that performance of the four link. So what we're going to do today is we're doing details that nobody's going to see. It's more or less for my benefit, so I can say, you know, somebody was like, oh, that's really cool and stuff, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I did the whole frame and stuff too, and they're going to be like, really? And they can look underneath it and see that I took the time and effort to actually paint the frame and detail everything that way. So all we're doing, so if this is something that's been sitting in the ground for 30 plus years, this frame ain't going to be black. It's not going to look new. So we need to age this terribly. I want it to look super rusty, make it look like it's been sitting forever and a day. We're actually going to paint these shock caps. Well, not just the caps. We're going to paint the whole shock body, everything except the ram. And then I'm probably going to paint these springs red. Why? Because, I don't know, I just wanted some color contrast. And we're going to use these little, I bought these and I still haven't used them yet, but this should help hold the spring still while I paint it. And these are actually bendy, so you can actually bend them and hold it and paint it like that. So that'll be cool. We'll get to use that. I've had these for a while and I wanted to use them, but just haven't had a reason to. So I've done most of the boring stuff, and now we're just kind of getting on to the fun stuff. All I got left to do is take these shocks off, and we'll probably elevate the frame, and then we'll mix up some rust. I use the same 4 colors in all my rust work. Same 4 colors. I use burnt umber, brown oxide, not lipstick red. I don't use lipstick red. Why is that even here? Get that out of here. Engine red. It's a satin color. It gives it kind of a, not a shiny, it's hard to describe, but we're mixing matte and satin, and it gives it just the right texture. And then I use jack-o'-lantern for orange. So I use those same 4 colors in all my rust work. I just mix them in different variants to get the desired rust look that I'm looking for. What's up? Yes, it is a crawler. Let me show you the body real quick. So the body is almost done. We're going to do the interior later today. That's what's up. TRX4M. That's a good start. That's a good starting RC right there for sure. Whoops, there goes the door. I got the door off because we're going to try and paint the panels today. The interior panels. So the interior panels come black, but if you know anything about these Jurassic Park Jeeps, their interiors were tan. So we're going to paint the interior tan. We're going to add some scale details to it and stuff. We'll get pretty in-depth into it at some point today. We're going to start with the frame, though, because I just feel like starting with something a little easier. Rust work is pretty easy for me nowadays. It didn't used to be. Rust is something that I used to be scared of. I used to be like, oh, I don't know if I can make good rust. Well, just pull the pin on it and just start playing with it. Paint on something. I mean, paint on a paper plate. You know, take a paper plate and just start doodling on it and try and make rust work. Try and make the plate look rusty. And over time, you'll find out that you just sort of learn your own techniques. I mean, I've still watched lots of modeling videos and stuff to give myself a good idea as to how I do these things. I also bought some new sponges. We're going to use sponges for this. I don't like brush strokes, not unless I have to. But we're probably just going to use one of these little sponge brushes, and we'll just rust up everything. So we're going to start with brown oxide. Make sure you shake up your acrylics real good. I'm probably going to need quite a bit of paint because we're going to be doing a lot of rust work today. So maybe about that much. That's pretty good. And then, what did I say? Burnt umber. That's a lot darker brown. We don't use a whole lot of that, but it just kind of tones it down a smidge. And then, really, that combination is the base for everything. And then I just add red and orange as I see fit to get the desired rust look. So let's, a little bit more red. That should be good. A little bit of orange. Actually, what? Let's use Harvest Orange. I use different oranges sometimes, but let's use Harvest Orange. I want a darker rust look there. Just a dot of orange. And then I guess we'll mix it with a regular brush. I guess. I don't have anything to mix offhand right here. Unless I can find a stick. Let me see if I can find a stick. Right on, dude. RC life all the way, man. Seriously. Woo! I found a stick. All right, so we're gonna mix that up. I also, this is polystyrene, and I am going to be attempting to make an exhaust system, and we're gonna make that all rusty and pitted, and I might take a soldering iron and poke some holes and stuff like that in there, and we'll just rust it out to make it look like a old rusty exhaust system if I have enough of that stuff. But let's get mixing. Might have put too much orange in there. We'll see. No, it's mixing pretty good. So far, so good. Just want a nice uniform color. You gotta put this stuff on in layers if you want the right look. You can't just paint it all one color. The nice thing about it is we're starting out with a black frame. So as we scratch over rocks and stuff like that, some of this paint will scrape off. But as it scrapes off, it's just going to scrape through and show through as black. So that'll just look like a rust hole. So it'll actually benefit us to drive it. Alright, that's pretty uniformly mixed. That's about the color I wanted to start with. Yeah. Alright. Good deal. Alright, now we just dive into it. Now, as a general rule of thumb, don't try and paint on anything like a bearing or anything like that. You don't want to paint on that stuff because that could cause performance issues. Just get a dab. Don't think about it too much. Thinking too much is what keeps people from doing stuff. Because they're like, oh, I don't want to mess it up. Dude, I mess stuff up all the time. All the time. The important thing about messing stuff up is you learn from it. At least try. At least try to learn from it. Yeah, this is turning out to be a good color. Like I said, is anybody going to see the top of the frame? No. Highly doubt it. People might see the bottom or maybe the side. Oh, I said I was going to take the shocks off. We can still do that. See, look. Told you guys I make mistakes all the time. I was in a rush to get this started. But what I'll probably do, I'll just paint the top. And while the top's drying, I'll finish taking off the shocks. That way we can start on a second layer a little faster. Alright, that's the top of the frame. You know what? I'm actually going to paint the transmission too while we're here. It's not the hardest thing in the world to take the body off the frame, but it is a little bit of work, so you kind of want to get as much done as you can while this is apart. I'm painting the back side of the transmission, which nobody ever is going to see. Ever. Could I paint the top of the skid plate? Yeah. Anybody gonna see it? No. I'll paint the drive shafts and stuff too. Alright, that's a good top coat. We don't want this to dry, so we're gonna be kind of quick on taking these shocks apart. Whoops. A little more. There we go. Come on. Now we need... Can we get a bite on this? Yeah. Come on, you. I need to change this screw out. It's getting worn out already. FMS doesn't have the... well, it's not FMS. This is Rock Hobby, technically. FMS sells it. but they don't have the strongest hardware because these tools hold up pretty good. These are some cheap Amazon drivers, but some of the hardware that comes on these RTRs is pretty soft. I'll pinch it and pull it off that way. And then we'll just find a new screw. Always keep a fair bit of hardware on hand because stuff like this tends to happen often. Like I said, making mistakes is important because you learn from them. Which is not necessarily a mistake, but I know to have hardware on hand for when stuff strips out, we just replace it. Do not put stripped hardware back on the truck. Don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy. Don't be that guy. If I strip something out, I take it out, change it. All right. That there. That screw is no good. Trash. Straight to trash. All right. We still got the top of the frame drying. Let's get these other shocks off. There we go. I have... Oh, where'd it go? Where did you go? There it is. I keep lots of these little magnetic trays that hold all my stuff down so I don't lose it. I also have little magnets inside this mat too. Alright, so that's a good one. And that's a good one. That one goes in here. Well, I suppose we could leave that out. That's fine. Pop this one down. Oh, we gotta undo it first. There we go. It also helps not to... Don't use a hand drill to put stuff together. Only use it to take stuff apart. That'll save you from having to replace hardware all the time. And it also keeps you from stripping out any of the plastics. Yeah, that's going to turn out to be a nice color of rust. It's got a little bit of a red tone to it. Hopefully the color's coming out decent on camera. Alright, one more shock and then we can start on the next coat. There we go. Alright. Goes in there. We'll take those shocks apart here in a bit. Let's lift this frame up some. The paint's still a little wet. Come on. Oh, keep blocks of wood. Try not to get paint all over me. There we go. I like that. Yeah, that's fine. No, it's not. It's not fine. It's not fine at all. Come on. There we... No. Come on. There we go. A little forward heavy with nothing on the back. Alright, let's go back to what we were doing. Painting. Now that we got those shocks off, what we'll do, we'll grab somewhere we're not going to paint and just start doing this stuff. I find painting with sponges way better for rust. It gives you a little bit of texture. If I was making like a show truck, something like shiny and like really nice, I would probably take the whole thing completely apart before doing this, and I would paint it with like a rattle can. If I had an airbrush, I would paint it with that too. I'll eventually get around to that. I mean, as the channel makes more money, I'm gonna keep investing in the channel, so that'll definitely be one of those things that I invest in is an airbrush uh, kit. Not a super expensive one. I don't want to spend like Iwata money or nothing, but maybe one of those little hobby airbrush kits from like Hobby Lobby or something. We don't paint every day, although it feels like it sometimes. It feels like I paint every day sometimes. Adding some decent texture there. That's a good base color. If you get this acrylic paint on anything you don't want to have acrylic paint on, you don't have a whole lot of time to get it off. This stuff does dry pretty quick. So sometimes I just take my thumb and wipe across. That makes it easier. The skin will shed off the paint after a while. And paint that battery cover just a little bit. Give it some texture. That's not bad. Not bad. What can we do while that's drying? Let's start on this rear axle. And I did blow this off with an air gun, but I didn't clean it super good. It's not like 100% clean. And does that help or hurt? I'm sure it's going to keep the paint from sticking, but honestly, we're painting rust. We're painting weathering, so it's really not that important. It just has to stick a little. I did the same thing on my TF2, which those are metal axles, so I guess that's a little different story, but this acrylic stuff is pretty sticky. It sticks pretty good. As long as you're not like painting on top of oil or grease, it should stick. You shouldn't have to sand like sanding on the axles and stuff. You don't have to do that. This stuff should stick pretty good. And like I said, the nice thing about these plastics being black is that as this paint wears off, depending on how it wears off, but it should wear off from the bottom up. And that'll give it the appeal and the look that it's leaking oil, or how real axles rust, where they have, rust on top and greasy, oily bits on the bottom. This sponge is working really good. I spent a whopping $4 on this sponge kit. Always trying to do this stuff on the cheap. Some people brag about how much they spend on their RCs. I brag about how little I spend. Be like, oh, I made that look good, and I only spent, $5 on the whole paint job. That's more important bragging rights to me, is how you can do it based on your skill level versus how much money you spent. Which, there's not a whole lot of skill involved in this. More patience than anything. Alright, we got the top and the back of that axle. Let's do the bottom. Like I said, the bottom's probably going to scrape right off once we drive it, but no one's going to know. How would they know? Like I said, we're not spending a ton of effort trying to do this. One, because we're going to put layers on here. This isn't the only time we're going to be painting this axle or any of this stuff. I'm going to try not to paint over any bearings. We don't want bearings sticking or rubbing. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so that axle's done. Let's, woo! Can we set that down without making a mess? No. All right. How are we gonna do that? Ooh, that's a good idea. Go me, I can't believe I just thought of that. Let's flip this upside down, because we didn't paint that side yet. We're already almost dry on the top of the frame. So let's just flip it upside down. There we go. I say almost dry. We're not all the way dry, but we're getting there. Let's fix what I just messed up. Got a big old thumb print right there. We just dab that away. Let's do the skid plate while we're here. There's not really a technique to this. I'm just dabbing. Like I said, this isn't the only layer of paint we're putting on here. We kind of just, especially the base layer, we just need coverage. We can worry about like fine details and stuff when we're on our like second and third pass. Right now we just need a good starting point. What's going to be a good way to not set that on there? I didn't really write a script or anything for today. IT department's running slow. Just let that sit there. What is going to be a good way? Just set a little paint bottle there. Boom. Ta-da! We're just winging it. Did I just... Yes, I did. Where'd I touch it? Right there. Like I said, this is a whole mess of effort for something that probably nobody's ever really gonna see. Unless they look really hard. But I mean, you know, at certain show and shines and stuff, they do look really hard at that stuff. They do look under your truck and stuff. Like at Beat the Creek, they looked under my truck. They were like, you know, wow, you actually painted the axles and frame and everything. So taking that little bit of extra effort does mean something to some people. I think we mixed up almost the perfect amount of paint for this. I'm starting to run a little low, and all I got left to do pretty much is the axle and the drive shafts. For the first coat, anyway. We also have to do those shocks, but we'll get it done. I gotta do the steering links. We should probably do the links too. We'll start with the bottoms. Like I said, this stuff, if you keep this stuff really thin, like don't glob it on there. Just kind of dab it on there. This stuff will dry in minutes. It's not like perfect in minutes, but you can put on 3 or 4 coats a day of this stuff. Maybe more, I don't know, but it dries really fast if you keep it light. Make this look so rusty and yucky underneath that nobody in their right mind is going to be off-roading in something this rusty. I'm going to be covered in paint by the end of the day. I feel it. It's going to happen. use the sponge to try and get in all the cracks and crevices. Like I said, there's also, you know, there's pros to this being a black uh, plastic axle, because it's already got shadows built into it. We definitely don't want to paint on the U-joints. Oh wow, I gotta work on that. It looks like I'm missing a... Oh, whew, that was good. I'm glad I caught that. The pin for the U-joint is starting to come out. That was close. Because I was like, oh, it's not showing in the backside, but it's still in there in the front side. Nice. That was a close one. I don't know how to get that in there. Maybe some pliers? It doesn't even look like it has threads. Whoops. I don't want to pull it out. Yeah, it doesn't want to come out. Maybe I can tap it in place. Yeah, because I looked on the backside and I was just like, whoa, hey, did that pin fall out? No, not yet. It's going to. Whoops. Now it doesn't want to go in. How do we fix that? I'm sure somebody would be like, just buy a new axle. I like to fix things as much as possible until I can't fix it no more. I need something to tap on that. That'll work. Can we just push that in place? Oh, yep. I'm gonna give it a... Oh, there we go. Now, did that fix our problem? Hey, not bad. Okay, cool. I'm just keep an eye on that. Might be a good idea to order some axle shafts just in case. That would suck. To have that fall apart on me at Beat the Creek. Which I'm probably not going to take this on any like major trails or anything like that. Just because it's more of an art build. It's not a performance build. I am bringing some good off-roady trucks for the trails at Beat the Creek. This one probably won't see much trail action though. Same thing with my RC 4-wheel drive. My Trailfinder 2 is just too low to the ground. It's got almost no ground clearance. Like, it's nice to drive around on flat ground and stuff. I can do a little bit off-road and I go in the mud with it. But as far as like actually crawling on the rocks and stuff, it's not really good for that. All you're going to do is just scrape and scratch everything. Paint around the C-hubs. Don't want the paint too thick around here, just in case we have any clearance issues or anything. See, this paint on this axle, it's already almost dry. You just dab it a little bit. That's turning out to be a really nice rust color. What more can we do? Let's do the drive shafts. It's probably... It's going to be the easiest way to do this. I don't know, we'll just paint half the drive shaft now, wait for it to dry, and then we'll paint the other half after this dries. The easiest way to do it. I would try and rotate. Well, okay, so I probably shouldn't even paint this because that's going to telescope in and out. So we can just take that and paint it that way. Just rotate. I mean, I already got paint all over my hand, so it really doesn't matter. Try to think about making everything as rusty as possible. All right, that's first coat over there. Rotate. Like I said, this is the first coat. You really don't have to be perfect on this stuff. Like I said, the fact that you're putting any effort at all into the bottom is already a step ahead of most people. Most people won't take the time, even on their art builds, to actually paint the bottom. Because in their mind, no one's going to look at the bottom. I look at the bottom. That link's done. Let's do the upper link. Nice thing about doing this in steps too is that it gives you plenty of chances to go back and find any of those spots that you missed. That looks pretty good. Get this link out of the way. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Nice and rusty. Need a rusty steering link too. Turn that up. Like I said, it's almost better if you don't get a totally uniform coat on there. Realism is almost never uniform. It's always a little different. So like when I painted that body of that Jeep, I made sure not to paint anything the same on both sides. So like if I paint a rust spot or if I paint a black smudge or anything like that, I make sure I don't replicate that on the other side. Hey, another cool thing we could do is paint this servo. I'm just going to paint the face of it so it'll blend in good. Anytime I'm trying to get into a corner, I kind of just smudge the sponge in there. It usually gets it in there pretty good. I do have smaller ones if I need to get into a tighter space. These kits are pretty useful. Nice thing about these is, I mean, yeah, if you really wanted to save money, you could wash this and, you know, try and get a few more uses out of it. Honestly, I'm probably going to throw this sponge away after today. There's no point in saving it. I paid $4 for the whole kit. I have multiple sponges in there. So once I'm done with this sponge today, depending on if it sticks on there good or not, but I'll probably just toss it. It's a nice thing about buying cheap stuff. Because it'll probably never give me the same texture twice. Even if I washed it. It'll probably have a hard spot in there or something. That's looking pretty good. I'm not seeing a whole lot more I need to add. I kind of want to rust the bumper. Let's dab that bumper down. I got a little bit of paint left. But we're probably going to change the tone of this paint for the next go around. That's pretty good. And then we can If you have to, you can use like brush strokes to get in there. Just make sure you like dab it afterwards. You don't want streaks. Rust doesn't rust in streaks like that, like a brush stroke. Most of the time. I mean, if you're doing like a really aesthetic one, I guess you could kind of run it down a little bit, but it's really hard to do that. It's easier just to do this method and just dab over everything. Do a little bit more on the side here. Like I said, it's really not important. I mean, it is important that you don't leave fingerprints. Stop touching wet paint. But if you have a little bit of frame that's not quite painted all the way, it's just going to look like an oil spot or something. So, not really a big deal. And like I said, we're going to do multiple coats. So, that's really not bad. I don't have too much left to do with that color. Trying to think of what, oh, we could, while we're here, we can rust the top. Something I like to do when it comes to rusting in a realistic manner is I think about gravity. So rust should always be heavier up top and lighter on the bottom. Because rust goes down. Trying to see. I think we're pretty good on that. Wait for that bumper to dry and then we'll flip it back over and start on our second coat. And like I said, we'll change the color of this rust a little bit. I'll probably add a little more orange to it. What can we do in the meantime? Like I said, it only takes a few minutes for this stuff to dry, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of downtime in between coats. I can take these shocks apart and start painting these shocks. That is definitely something I could work on. These shocks come apart kind of weird. They don't come apart like regular shocks. Regular shocks, for most RCs, you have like a slit in the bottom and you can take the bottom out and then just pull the spring down, but these don't work like that. You have to take the shock cap off in order to get the shock out, or get the spring out. Which is kind of weird. Alright, that's 2 shocks, 2 springs. There we go. Probably need to clean these just a smidge. You got some sand on them still from when I took this to the beach, which we could use that to our advantage. That can, because the paint won't stick to the sand, so what we can do is just paint over this, and then later after the paint dries, just brush it a little bit, and it'll show through as black like little rust holes. So, boom, making lemonade out of lemons. I will clean it a little bit, just for performance sakes, but I'm not going to do it much. Sometimes it works to your advantage to paint stuff dirty. Pretty much just going to clean that shaft up. That's about it. And then shock cap back on. I definitely don't want to paint these threads because that would be a nightmare later. So you want to make sure those are sealed up some. And I'm definitely not going to paint the shaft itself. So we want to keep that down while we paint it. That axle's already almost done. Come on. Come on. That one was on there. Alright, we got the springs. Shaft's fairly clean. Whoop! Smooth. Alright. That's gonna need cleaning now. See how it just like shot out of there? What's gonna be the best way to clean that? I guess just get your fingers dirty. It shot right into my paint. I don't know if you got that on camera or not, but that little rubber grommet went boop right into the paint. Hopefully, like I said, if you get acrylic on stuff you don't want acrylic on, you got like maybe 30 seconds to a minute to wipe that stuff off, or else it's going to be on there. When I do my washes, when I do like my black and brown washes and stuff, I just take acrylic paint and mix a little bit of water in there, and I do my wash with that. And I pretty much I paint it on and wait like maybe 15 to 30 seconds max, and then wipe it off, and it works perfect for a wash. You don't have to spend obscene amounts of money on that fancy weathering wash and paint and stuff. It's not necessary. Like if you want to get that kind of stuff, like the AK paints and stuff, like yeah, it looks good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good, but you can get fairly close to the same effect with some cheap Walmart acrylic paint. You just have to know how to do it. Whether that be watering it down or putting on in lighter coats, however you feel like doing it. Let's test these out. We're gonna hopefully make that work. Right? Is it gonna stay? Cool. Alright. Let's see if we can make this work. Let's not be that heavy. There's no way that's gonna stay. Yep, see, that's what I was afraid of. Alright. Here's what we'll do. We'll grab the shaft. Yeah. Why does... Come on. Alright. Yeah, we'll do it like that. Paint our shocks. Oh, see, I got paint on the dang shaft. Exactly what I said not to do. Don't even be listening to myself. Try not to make that too heavy. Leave that like that. Let me clean that off before that becomes a problem. Go off of there. Good. Not bad. Oh, we missed a spot. That'll be the deal breaker. Someone will look at it and be like, "Oh, he missed a spot on his shock." That would be infuriating. All right, we got that shock painted. Now let's do another one. I really like these things. These things, I need to start using these more often. So we'll do the same thing here. I'm going to keep my finger over the shaft so I don't accidentally paint it again. Good enough. Right, did I get it all this time? Yes. Alright. I'll stick that right there. I'll rotate that. Yeah, that's nice. That sits there and holds that. Before I could only paint like one shock at a time, and I'd sit there and just hold it with my hand until the paint was dry enough for it to set on the ground. Which, you know, that's not fun. Extremely time consuming. This paint's starting to dry a little bit. Like my little puddle over here is starting to dry. But as long as I can still lay it down some, that's all that really matters. It will stick. Like I said, it's sticky. It will stick to this plastic. You don't have to worry about it flaking off. You don't have to sand your parts. At least not for weathering and rust work and stuff. If I was like painting, which I wouldn't paint a hard body with a silicone sponge like that. Maybe some weathering work, but not to make it look nice or shiny or anything like that. I wouldn't use acrylic for that. I would use a rattle can or airbrush. And that you would want to sand because you'd want a nice uniform coat. But for this kind of weathering stuff, this is plenty good enough. Like the title of this video says, ain't nobody even gonna see this. This is just for me to know it's there. And for anybody to notice it, that gives them an extra brownie point in my book. Because they'd be like, oh, you actually took the time to take it apart and paint the shocks. Alright. Now, this is almost dry. I think we can flip this. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident we can flip this. Right? I'm not feeling any wet spots. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. Let's flip her over. Oh. Watch out for the links. Come on. Come on. There we go. Nicely done. Good enough. Maybe not. Maybe not. Come on. If I really wanted to be like a perfectionist, I'd probably take the axles apart and paint them that way. But I'm trying to save myself a little bit of time. We have to paint. We got a little spot right there. Just dab that. Do the top of the links with this same color, and then we'll change the color. Yeah. Come on, get in there. Get all of this in there. Ooh, don't knock your shocks over. Poor placement. I should have moved those off to the side. It'll be alright. Get that going. Not seeing too much left that I have to do with this particular color. Do the panhard bar. Need to do the rest of the C-hub. Like I said, you don't want to paint the bearing. You can paint right up to the bearing, but do not put paint on the bearing. Get a little more paint. Get top of the axle. So far so good. We're cruising along pretty decent. I don't know how long I've already been streaming, probably a while. I ain't got a whole lot to do today, so we can go a little bit over just so you guys can see nearly the finished product on this. Come on. At the top of that. And in there. We have any more spots. A little bit more on the C-hub. A little spot right there. I'm trying to keep my brush kind of dry just so I can hurry things along. I don't want to be globbing paint on there. You get a real thick coat on there, it's going to take a really long time to dry. Not bad, not bad. That on there. Oh, let's get that drag link. Alright, how does that look? Not bad, not bad. That's pretty good. Yeah, I think we're ready to change colors. Alright, let's get those links down. There we go. Alright, let's put a little more orange in here. That is what I said, right? I wanted to put more orange in it. You guys a little closer, you can see what I'm doing. We're gonna slowly put less paint on there. Let's start with just a drop of orange, because that'll change the color quite a bit. that mixed in there real good. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty distinct color difference. I don't know if that comes out on camera good, but see how it's got a little more orange in it. And then we'll try and dry that brush a little bit and get back after it. Oh yeah, good color contrast there. Which I'm not gonna do a total coat and completely cover everything, because I mean, what would be the point of the first coat if you're just gonna cover it up with a second coat of a different color? I mean, I guess layering, but we're gonna paint the top and a little bit of the sides, and then that should be good for the frame. Then we can move on to other stuff. Paint that transfer case that nobody's gonna see. Paint the transmission, nobody's gonna see. But I know it's there. I could honestly probably paint that motor too. I have done that before where I painted the motor, but I probably will be changing that motor fairly soon, so there's no point in painting it right now. Not bad, not bad. Let's try and get in there some more. Nice, nice. Get up here. You can, when you're getting like a really good look at this truck when it's all put together, you can see the frame from the side. So this isn't, you know, totally hidden. Honestly, if I wanted to be like really fancy with it, I'd paint the inside of the frame too. But I'd probably have to take it apart to do that. Just add a little bit of texture. Not bad, not bad. We need to finish rusting this bumper. Dry a little bit. That turned out pretty good. That gets it, the sponge adds a really nice texture. It's making it look very rusty. I'm gonna have to do a fair bit more work on this bumper to get the right look that I'm going for. But it's pretty close. I'm gonna have to take those D-rings off. Otherwise, it's just gonna blend all together. Ooh, I don't know if I can take those off. Can I? I need a thingamabob. Need some tweezers. Is it gonna work? Is that gonna work? Don't mess up the paint that I've already worked on. There we go. There we go. Come on. Tweezers. These are plastic D-rings, so they're not the highest quality looking ones. But I'm not planning on pulling on them. There we go. There we go. I'll paint those D-rings separately. Come on, focus. Focus. Yeah, it's just a little plastic black D-ring, so we'll set those over there and we'll paint those separate. They're not actually threaded. It's like a little push tab to get these off. Come on. I have to squeeze the tip of it with tweezers. I may not have to. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Nope, yep, definitely have to. Can't get a good grip on them. Come on! Get off of there. I was not planning on those being that hard to get off of there. Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. You're gonna rotate. You're gonna rotate. 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 This one wants to struggle. That's the big downside about working on scale models, is like you have to have a really good dexterity to get this stuff the way you want it. Where are my pliers? There they are. See if I can pinch this without breaking it. Which if I break it, I'll just put some metal D-rings on there. But if I can keep the plastic ones, I'll probably keep the plastic ones. Like I said, we're not doing any crazy off-roading with this. I mean, I'll still go off-road with it plenty, but we're not going to be winching off of these D-rings. Ah, come on. Brother. There we go. Sheesh. Wow, that was a hassle. Come off of there. That was a lot of work. Oop. Come on. Come on. Don't break it. Don't break it. Got it. Sheesh. That was a lot of work. Okay. Now, that's still drying. I can't touch it because it's wet. I can touch the axle. Yeah, you can move the axle a little bit. Let's see if I can move you guys where you can see what I'm dealing with a little better on the detail side of this bumper, because this bumper needs some more work. Let's see. Can you see good on that? Maybe. That's a little better. Let's bring our light down. I can see a little better that way. There we go. Yeah, we're wanting to get that a little better looking. Let's take our orange rust. It's starting to dry. I had to move those D-rings so I could get behind them. Just add a nice little layer of rust. Try and get rid of any brush strokes, which you can glob up a little paint on the edge and kind of work it in there to get rid of that, and then you got to dab it away. You don't want it to dry with that brushstroke look to it. You want it to be kind of rusty textured. Get those. Probably spend quite a bit of time on the bumpers. This is a particular thing that I like to focus on. I like having nice bumpers. But what we'll do is we'll actually cover some of this up. Once we get the right texture on there. I like to keep going while it's drying because it'll give it more texture. That's not bad. That's not a bad start. Not too shabby. Because we're probably going to paint maybe black. We might chip this bumper once it dries real good. Instead of how I usually chip stuff with the silver, because that wouldn't match up good. I think I'm just going to use black, and we'll paint over this with black after I hit it with some hairspray. So this will dry, and then I'll hit it with hairspray, and then I'll paint over it with black, and then slowly brush the black off a little bit, and that bumper will look nice and chipped away and rusty. That'll be a good look. Alright, so I think we're pretty much good on the frame. I'm gonna rinse this off just in case I change my mind and decide to reuse this. But more than likely, it's probably going to be a one-time use because these sponges, they like to get hard in certain spots, and it'll mess with your pattern. You won't get the same pattern that you got last time, even if you wash it. They just they don't hold up, but they're cheap, so that's all I'm really worried about. But yeah, that turned out really nice. Frame's pretty good. I think we're gonna paint the springs. We're gonna paint those red, just because I wanted a nice color contrast. Let me go rinse this brush off, and then we'll start on the springs. Yeah, see, it changes the shape. Even though I rinsed it off really good, sort of good, at least on the bottom, there's a good chance that that'll harden up a little bit. So, might work, might not. We'll see. See if it can be saved. Alright, let's get started on these springs. I can use... Actually, I think my shocks are done. I think the shocks are ready. We'll let that bumper dry completely before we start the chipping method on that. Let's get our light situated. Come on. That's not too bad. We've got decent lighting. I think these are dry. I mean, we only let them sit there for not too long, but you can kind of see how they look rusty? Like I said, you don't want to paint this because then that's going to mess with the way it looks, but these are pretty much ready to sit on the floor. I think. Yeah, they look fairly dry. I'm not going to do multiple coats on these because there's a good chance this spring is going to ride on top of there, and there's a good chance it just rub it right off. So we don't know if this level of work is even going to last. But I will paint these springs. They got a little bit of sand on them, but we're going to try and get some paint on them. I might... I was half tempted just to dunk these in paint. I don't know how I should paint those, honestly. I think I'm going to use one of the little sponges. Don't hit the light. Yeah. Probably try one of these little sponges. Maybe I can drag the sponge through it, is what I'm thinking. Is like go through it like this, and then just drag it through like that. Maybe. I don't know. We'll give it a shot. It might work. I am just going to paint... Not lipstick. Why did I even grab lipstick? I don't use lipstick red. Where's my engine red? Oh, there it is. There it is. It's a satin engine red. And then we'll try the dragging the sponge through there, see if that works or not. And if it works, we'll just zip through that, put them in the little paint part holders, and go from there. I try to just mix on a paper plate as often as I can. All right, let's soak up a bunch of paint, see if this works. It'll at least paint the inside. And just slide the spring on there. Probably gonna get paint everywhere. Maybe. Oh, hey, that kind of worked. I mean, we made a little bit of a mess, but hey, that kind of worked. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a mess. I can already tell. Can already tell. You know what? Probably. Hey, that's not a bad idea. Whoops. Figuring this out in real time. Let's grab this like so. And then shove that down in there. Yeah, hey, all right. And we just kind of do that. Looks like we just dip this spring in ketchup. I was not anticipating on this being this thick of paint. That's the real scale trick right there, dipping your springs in ketchup. I mean, it's not terrible looking. I don't know. I don't even know if this paint's going to stay on here. Like, once these springs compress a couple of times, it's probably just going to flake right off. It was worth a shot, though. It was worth trying. I don't know if I'm going to do multiple coats or not, but we'll see. That's not bad. I'm okay with that. Even if it doesn't last, I'm okay with that. Because now we have a red spring. And then we'll just stick that right there to dry. And then we'll do the same thing with this spring. And soak up a bunch of paint. Glob it on there. Run the spring through. Just bloop. I'm gonna get the inside real good. Oh, yeah, we were gonna do that grip method bit. Put that there. Grip it on there. I told you I was gonna be covered with paint today. I kind of knew that. I saw that coming. But this should give a nice bit of contrast to all the rust underneath it. I'm trying not to have globs of paint on this. I'm thinking 2 coats should be enough. Like I said, I have no idea if this is even going to hold up. I haven't painted springs before, so this could be a total waste of time. But you won't learn if you don't try things. Glob paint on there. And just run it through the spring. Oop. Oop. Now we're slinging paint everywhere. Take our little grabber. Grab on there. Might turn out pretty cool. Not bad. We're moving along pretty good. I'm trying not to leave big old globs. Not bad, not bad. Like I said, 2 coats of paint will probably cover that all the way. Oh, we don't need that yet. We gotta do the pass through. Glob of paint. I'll run the spring through. Do I think somebody's gonna come by and be like, wow, you painted the inside of the spring? No. Nope, this is for my enjoyment. In case somebody asks and be like, oh, you painted the springs, and be like, yeah, I even painted the inside of them. They'd be like, why? I'll be like, I don't know. That on there. All right. Now we let those dry. Like I said, we'll probably put 2 coats of red on there. I'm gonna stay put. Let's steer that one that way. There we go. Whoa! Aw. Well, might be a little bit of dirt in that spring. Put that in there a little better. How about that one? There we go. All right. I don't know what else we can work on right now. We're kind of waiting on everything to dry, which we're already over our time, and hands are covered with paint anyway. So I can't really work on the interior panels until I get all this off, and I can't work on anything else until the paint dries. So I guess we'll wrap it up there, guys. I really appreciate you all watching this long, watching me screw around with this stuff. Like, subscribe, all that good jazz. I got a full-length video on this build coming out today at 5, I believe. Should be 5 o'clock today. This stuff won't be in the video, obviously, because you're watching it now, but a lot of the weathering, and there's a little bit of driving in the video, too. And how I did the Nerf bars and that kind of stuff. So if you want to see that kind of stuff, that'll be out later today. And just stay tuned, guys. All kinds of cool stuff coming out in the future. I got to get to it. Appreciate you. Bye.